Imagine receiving an eerie clue every day that pulls you deeper into a dark mystery. What would you do if, instead of sweets, an advent calendar revealed sinister secrets about inexplicable disappearances in your own town? Christmas is usually a time of joy, but for the residents of a small village, it turned into a season of fear and dread with the arrival of an unconventional advent calendar. The calendar of lost days appeared on a cold December morning on Clara's doorstep, the local baker of the town. At first glance, it seemed like a lovely anonymous gift, adorned with festive images and bright colors, but its true purpose was far from festive. From the very first day, when Clara opened the first window and discovered a snippet of a newspaper article about a young man who disappeared years ago, a chain of events was set into motion that would shake the entire town. Every day, a new window opened, revealing a clue darker and more disturbing than the last. On the second day, there was a lock of hair tied with an old ribbon, accompanied by a note written in trembling handwriting that said, "Remember Alicia." No one in the town had heard of an Alicia that matched this description. However, the name resonated somehow, like an echo from the past that everyone preferred to forget. The third revelation was even more unsettling. An old black and white photograph showing a group of children playing in a park. In the background, a blurry man seemed to be watching them. Clara couldn't sleep that night, disturbed by the growing sense that something very dark was hidden behind these images. As the calendar progressed, the revelations began to form a pattern that only Clara and a few residents could decipher. They were all clues about people who had vanished without a trace over the years, some of whom had never been officially reported missing. The calendar soon became the main topic of conversation in the town. The older residents remembered whispered stories about unexplained disappearances that plagued the town for decades, disappearances that seemed to have turned into urban legends. However, Clara and a few of her closest friends began to investigate, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, eager to find answers. They gathered in the bakery after closing hours, sharing theories and fears, as the clock ticked toward midnight and the shadows grew longer. The fourth window of the calendar contained something even more terrifying, a map with a location marked in the nearby forest. Trembling with fear and anticipation, Clara decided not to go alone, taking Tomas, the town's retired policeman, who had also begun to believe that something more sinister was behind these disappearances. Armed with flashlights and an old revolver, they ventured into the forest, following the map. The marked spot led them to an old abandoned cabin, seemingly deserted for decades. Forcing the rusty door open, what they found inside left them breathless. Documents, photographs, and personal items of several of the missing people. But what chilled them the most was a diary, filled with cryptic entries and disturbing drawings. It was evident that someone had been watching the town's residents for years, noting every detail of their lives and disappearances. Back in town, Clara and Tomas shared their findings with others, and a sense of urgency gripped everyone. The calendar continued to advance inexorably toward Christmas, and the revelations grew darker. Opening the sixth window, they found an old pocket watch that belonged to one of the missing, still ticking. Clara felt a tightness in her chest. Time was running out, but they couldn't stop now. As more people joined the investigation, panic began to spread among the residents. Disappearances that had been forgotten started to be remembered, and affected families demanded answers. The eighth window of the calendar revealed a chilling note written in an ancient language that spoke of a ritual held every 100 years to feed the forest. No one knew exactly what that meant, but the implications were terrifying. Clara, driven by the need to protect her family and neighbors, began researching the ancient language and associated rituals. She found references in old books in the town library and diaries forgotten in the attics of the oldest houses. Everything pointed to a ritual involving a sacrifice to appease an ancient entity dwelling in the forest that demanded souls as tribute. Finally, on the 24th day, Clara and her companions were ready for the worst. The last window contained a simple newspaper clipping dated 1924, describing a tragedy that occurred in the same town exactly 100 years ago. A series of disappearances during the Christmas season that were never resolved. The article ended with a warning. The cycle begins again. Clara then understood the true nature of the calendar. It was not just a reminder of the disappearances, but a prophecy of what was to come. With the town on the verge of collapse and the forest emanating a dark and palpable energy, Clara and the others decided to face the unknown. Armed with the knowledge from the calendar's clues, they organized a vigil in the forest, determined to stop the cycle of disappearances once and for all. On Christmas night, a spectral figure appeared in the forest clearing, surrounded by an icy aura. It was the spirit of the dark festivities, fed by the fear and souls of the disappeared. Clara, feeling the weight of the calendar's revelations, stepped forward and, with a firm voice, began reciting the ancient prayer found in the 13th window. As she spoke the words, the air grew denser, and the figure seemed to falter, weakened by the prayer's power. The flashlight beams began to flicker, and the cold became unbearable, but Clara pressed on, sustained by the hope of freeing her town from the cycle of terror. Finally, the figure let out a spine-chilling scream and vanished into the air, leaving behind only a whisper. The cycle has been broken. The town's residents gathered around Clara, relieved but aware that the real challenge lay ahead in rebuilding their lives and remembering those who were lost. As the sun began to rise, Clara looked at the Advent calendar one last time. The windows were now empty, but the memory of each revelation would remain etched in the town's memory. The baker knew that, although the cycle was broken, the stories and warnings from the past should always be remembered. And so, with a renewed sense of determination, she set out to build a future where the shadows of the past would no longer claim the innocent. I hope you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and comment on what you thought of this tale. See you next time.